The stars look different here. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the massive alien structure grow larger on the main screen. Nexus Prime was nothing like the space stations humans built. This thing was huge. Dark metal twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. Sharp edges everywhere, like whoever built it wanted to make sure visitors knew they were not welcome. Distance to docking bay? Jake asked. 2,000 meters in closing, Captain, replied Commander Alex Turner from his station. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. They all felt it. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for since the first radio. Signals came from deep space 3 years ago. Dr. Lisa Carter stood beside Jake, her tablet filled with notes about alien culture and biology. She had spent months studying every piece of information they had about the Zephyrians. It was not much. The aliens had shared basic language data and agreed to meet, but little else. Lisa pushed her brown hair behind her ear, a nervous habit Jake had noticed during their long journey. Remember, Lisa said quietly, their society values strength above all else. Physical power determines social rank. We need to be careful not to appear weak. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez checked his sidearm for the 10th time in an hour. The weapon felt small and useless compared to what they might face. The report said Zephyrians were nearly 8 feet tall with natural armor and 4 arms. Sam had been a Marine before joining the Space Service. He knew how to fight, but this was different. These aliens could probably break him in half without trying. Docking clamps engaged, reported the pilot. We're locked in. Jake straightened his uniform and looked at his small team. 4 humans about to meet an alien empire that controlled dozens of star systems. The weight of representing all of humanity pressed down on his shoulders. One wrong move could mean war. One right move could open the galaxy to human exploration. The airlock is cycling, Alex announced. They're coming aboard. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of ship systems. Jake moved to the main corridor with his team behind him. The airlock door was thick metal designed to keep space out and air in. Now it stood between humanity and its future. The door opened with a loud hiss. The first Zephyrian to step through was massive. Jake had read the reports, studied the measurements, but seeing one in person was completely different. The alien towered. Over them, its head nearly touching the ceiling. Dark gray skin covered in natural armor plates. 4 arms ending in hands with claws instead of fingers. Red eyes that seemed to glow in the ship's lighting. I am Ambassador Kethver of the Zephyrium. Empire, the alien said. Its voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. The translation device on Jake's collar turned the alien words into English, but the tone needed no translation. This was a predator speaking to prey. Welcome aboard the Liberty, Jake, replied, fighting to keep his voice level. I am Captain Jake Morrison. This is Dr. Lisa Carter, our chief diplomat and scientist. Commander Alex Turner, my first officer. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez, head of security. Kethver's red eyes moved over each human slowly. Jake felt like a bug being examined by something that might step on it. The alien's gaze lingered on their hands, their soft skin, their small size compared to his bulk. So, Kethver said, these are humans, the new species that wishes to join galactic civilization. He stepped closer to Dr. Carter, who stood her ground despite being dwarfed by the alien. You are the one who will speak for your kind. I am one of several who will represent humanity in these negotiations. Lisa answered carefully. Kethver reached out with one of his 4 hands. Lisa held still as sharp claws moved near her face. The alien's hand was twice the size of her head. He could crush her skull without effort. Soft, Kethver said with what might have been amusement. No natural weapons. No armor? How did your species survive long enough to reach the stars? Through intelligence and cooperation, Lisa replied. The alien made a sound that could have been laughter. Intelligence. Yes, we have heard this from other soft species. They all believed their minds would protect them. His red eyes focused on Lisa's hands. Show me these appendages you use to manipulate tools. Lisa held up her hands, palms forward. Kethver examined them with the interest of someone studying a strange insect. His claws traced the air around her fingers, never quite touching. 5 digits, soft flesh. No claws, no natural weapons, you call these hands? The alien's voice carried clear disgust. I have seen your species' weapons in our intelligence reports. How do you even hold them properly? These soft things cannot grip with real strength. They are not made for holding weapons. They are barely suitable for simple tasks. Jake felt Sam tense beside him. The lieutenant's hand moved slightly toward his weapon, but Jake caught his eye and gave a small shake of his head. Starting a fight. Here would doom humanity before negotiations even began. Our hands serve us well, Lisa said diplomatically. They allow us to create precise tools and technology. Tools, Kethver repeated. Yes, soft species always rely on tools because they lack natural strength. Come, we will continue this discussion on Nexus Prime, where you can see what real power looks like. The humans followed the massive alien through the airlock and into the Zephyrian station. The corridors were built for beings much larger than humans. Everything was oversized and intimidating. The walls were covered in dark metal with sharp decorative elements that looked more like weapons than art. Other Zephyrians moved through the passages, all of them giants compared to the human delegation. Some stopped to stare at the small aliens. With obvious curiosity, Jake heard comments in the alien language that the translator could not fully process, but the tone was clear enough. Amusement, contempt, the way humans might look at trained pets doing tricks. Your quarters are here, Kethver said, stopping at a set of doors. You will rest before we begin formal negotiations tomorrow. Food has been provided that should be suitable for your biology. The rooms were huge and uncomfortable, clearly designed for beings twice human size. The furniture was too big, the lighting too harsh, the temperature too cold. It all felt calculated to make the humans feel small and out of place. This is just the beginning, Alex said quietly when they were alone. Yeah, Sam agreed, checking the room for listening devices. They want us to feel weak and helpless. Classic intimidation tactics. Lisa sat on the oversized chair, her feet not quite reaching the floor. It is working. Did you see how he looked at us? Like we were insects. Jake moved to the window that showed the vast interior of Nexus Prime. Ships from dozens of different species docked at various levels. Some of the vessels were clearly designed by the same builders as the station. Others looked different, smaller, less impressive. Those smaller ships, Jake said. I wonder if they belong to species that started out like us. Soft, weak, dependent on tools and intelligence. What are you thinking? Lisa asked. I'm thinking we need to be very careful about what we agree to here. Something about this whole setup feels wrong. They invited us here for negotiations, but everything about this place is designed to make us feel inferior. Sam found what he was looking for. A small device hidden in the wall. We are being watched and probably recorded. Nothing we say is private. Then we stick to the plan, Jake sighed. We negotiate in good faith and see what they really want from humanity, but we stay alert. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Outside their window, the massive structure of Nexus Prime stretched away into darkness. Somewhere in that alien maze, decisions would be made that could determine the future of the human race. Jake looked at his own hands, soft and small compared to Zephyrian claws. But these hands had built the ship that brought them here. These hands had reached for the stars and grasped them. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tonight brought only questions, and the cold certainty that they were very far from home. The negotiation room was built to make humans feel small. Jake Morrison sat at a table that came up to his chest, his feet barely touching the floor. The chair was designed for someone twice his size. Everything about the space screamed that humans did not belong here. Ambassador Kethver loomed over the table, his forearms moving in gestures that emphasized his points. 2 other Zephyrians flanked him, equally massive and intimidating. Their red eyes never left the human delegation, watching every movement like predators studying prey. Your species offers little of value, Kethver said, his claws tapping against the metal table. The sound echoed in the vast room. Your technology is primitive, your military is weak. Your worlds are few and poorly defended. Dr. Lisa Carter kept her voice steady despite the obvious insult. Humanity has much to offer in terms of scientific research, cultural exchange, and peaceful cooperation. We have made significant advances in medical technology and agricultural systems. Medical technology for soft bodies that break easily, the alien replied with amusement. Agriculture for worlds that cannot even feed themselves properly. What use are these things to a strong empire? Jake watched the negotiations with growing concern. This was the third day of talks, and every session followed the same pattern. The Zephyrians would list human weaknesses and demand more concessions, trade routes that favored alien interests, mining rights to human worlds, defense agreements that put Earth under Zephyrian protection. We need time to consider these proposals. Jake said, some of these terms require approval from Earth government. Time is something your species has little of, Captain Morrison, Kethver replied. Other powers in this galaxy are not as patient as the Zephyrian Empire. They would simply take what they want rather than negotiate. Commander Alex Turner had been quietly taking notes throughout the sessions. He caught Jake's eye and tapped his pen against his tablet in a pattern Jake recognized. Morse code, SOS, something was wrong. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez sat stone-faced beside Lisa, but Jake could see the tension in his shoulders. The Marine had been growing more uncomfortable with each passing hour. His security training was screaming warnings that everyone was trying to ignore for the sake of diplomacy. Perhaps we could take a short break, Lisa suggested. These are complex issues that deserve careful consideration. Of course, Kethver agreed, but his tone suggested the break was not for human benefit. You will return to your quarters while we prepare the final terms of agreement. The four humans walked back through the oversized corridors of Nexus Prime. Other aliens moved past them, but Jake noticed something he had missed before. The smaller species moved quickly, keeping their heads down. They did not make eye contact with the Zephyrians and seemed nervous around the larger aliens. Something is not right here, Alex said once they reached their quarters. He pulled out a small device and swept the room for bugs. The scanner showed multiple listening devices, just as they had expected. Talk normally, Sam whispered. But listen carefully. Jake moved to the window while the others settled into their oversized furniture. The negotiations are going as expected, he said loudly enough for the listening devices to pick up. Then he began tapping on the window glass. More Morse code? SDOW. Communications down. The signal was picked up by Alex, who began his own coded tapping, JMMEDSINCDYONE. Jammed since day one, Lisa stood and walked to the food dispenser, speaking normally about the day's negotiations while her fingers traced letters on the machine. NOEXITSIGNS. No exit signs. Sam checked his weapon and found what he feared. The power cell was drained. Someone had been in their quarters while they were at the negotiations. EQ UIPMENTZBOTGD. Equipment sabotaged. The four humans continued their silent conversation while maintaining normal speech for the listening devices. Piece by piece, they realized the trap they had walked into. Communications with Earth had been blocked since their arrival. Security systems throughout the station were designed to keep them in, not intruders out. Their weapons had been disabled, their equipment compromised. I think I should review the cultural database again, Lisa said aloud while her hands moved. In sign language. She had been studying Zephyrian history and found disturbing patterns to WLVISP 12 species. All of them had come to Nexus Prime for negotiations. All of them had been declared protectorates of the Zephyrian Empire. All of them were now slave races, providing labor and resources for their alien masters. The trade agreements seem complex, Jake replied verbally while signing back. Is there an escape plan? Alex had been studying the station layout since their arrival. The Zephyrians had given them tours, showing off the power and size of their construction. But Alex had been taking notes on security weak points. Maintenance shafts and emergency systems, VNT, LTIO, and SYSTM ventilation system. The air recycling network ran throughout the station and was designed for automated maintenance. The tunnels were too small for Zephyrians, but might fit humans. Sam had been watching guard rotations and security procedures. The aliens relied on their size and strength for security, not sophisticated technology. They posted guards at major intersections but ignored maintenance areas and service corridors. URDS LSRY. Guards lazy. They did not expect trouble from species they considered weak and harmless. A chime sounded throughout their quarters. "Honored guests," came Kethvar's voice through the communication system. "Please join us for the evening meal. We have prepared a special feast to celebrate our new partnership." The humans exchanged glances. They had not agreed to any partnership yet, but the alien spoke as if the matter was decided. "We would be honored to attend," Jake replied. The dining hall was vast, with tables arranged to accommodate dozens of different species. Jake counted at least 15 different alien races, all smaller than the Zephyrians, all sitting at tables lower than their hosts. The arrangement was clearly designed to show the hierarchy of the Empire. Kethvar gestured for the humans to sit at a table near the center of the room. The food was unfamiliar but supposedly safe for human consumption. Lisa tested each dish carefully, her scientific training making her cautious about alien cuisine. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," Kethvar announced to the assembled aliens. "The human species has agreed to join the Zephyrian Empire as our newest protectorate." Jake started to stand, ready to correct the statement, but felt a sharp pain in his leg. Lisa had kicked him under the table while maintaining her diplomatic smile. She had noticed something the others had missed. Several of the smaller aliens were eating with obvious reluctance. Their body language suggested fear, rather than celebration. One species that looked vaguely reptilian kept glancing toward the exits as if planning to run. "We are honored by the Zephyrian Empire's protection," Lisa said diplomatically. "Such a generous offer deserves careful consideration." "There is nothing to consider," another Zephyrian replied. "Protection is not optional. All species in this sector require our guidance and security." The word protection was starting to sound like prison. Sam noticed that guards had moved to block the exits during the meal. Not obviously, but positioned to prevent anyone from leaving quickly. "Of course," Jake said carefully. "We understand the importance of security in these dangerous times." "Excellent," Kethvar replied. "Your species will provide valuable services to the Empire. Your small size makes you ideal for detailed work in our manufacturing facilities. Your soft hands, though unsuitable for weapons, can perform delicate assembly tasks." The truth hit them like a physical blow. This was not a negotiation. It was a trap. Humanity was being processed for slavery, just like the other species in the room. The show of diplomacy was just to keep them calm until the cage door closed. "We should return to our quarters to prepare our response to Earth," Alex said. "That will not be necessary," Kethvar replied with a smile that showed too many sharp teeth. "All communication with your homeworld has been suspended for security reasons. We will handle all contact with Earth from now on." The four humans sat in stunned silence as the reality of their situation became clear. They were prisoners on an alien station, cut off from help, surrounded by enemies who saw them as future slaves. Their soft hands and weak bodies were about to become tools for an empire built on conquest and oppression that they were not beaten yet. Human hands might be soft, but human hearts were not. Human minds might seem weak, but human will was stronger than any alien armor. The Zephyrians had made one critical mistake in their planning. They had underestimated their prey. The night cycle on Nexus Prime was darker than anything humans were used to. Jake Morrison lay on his oversized bed, staring at the ceiling while his mind raced through possible escape plans. Every option seemed impossible. They were four humans, trapped on an alien station with no weapons, no communication, and no way home. A soft tapping on the wall made him sit up. Alex was awake in the next room, sending another coded message. STUDYNGLOYOUT. Jake tapped back his acknowledgement and slipped out of bed. Dr. Lisa Carter was already awake, sitting at the workstation with her tablet. She had been analyzing everything they had learned about Zephyrian biology and technology. Her scientific mind was their best hope of finding weaknesses in their captors. "Cannot sleep either?" Jake whispered. "Too much to think about," Lisa replied softly. "I have been reviewing the data on Zephyrian physiology. Their strength comes from dense muscle fiber and reinforced bone structure. But there are trade-offs." She showed him her notes, written in a code they had developed during the journey. The Zephyrians were incredibly strong, but their massive build came with limitations. Their four-armed design was optimized for raw power, not fine control. Their claws were excellent for ripping and tearing, but terrible for detailed work. "Look at their tools and weapons," Lisa pointed to images on her tablet. "Everything is oversized and simple. Their weapon grips are designed for four hands working together, not precision aiming." Sam Rodriguez had been listening from the doorway. The Marine approached quietly, his expression grim. "I have been watching their security routines. They rely on intimidation more than actual defensive measures. Most of their guards are stationed at major intersections, not at critical systems." "What kind of critical systems?" Jake asked. "Power distribution, communication arrays, environmental controls. The things that keep this station running. They assume no one would be stupid enough to attack them on their own territory." Alex joined them, carrying a hand-drawn map of the station layout. "I have been memorizing the maintenance tunnels during our tours. The Zephyrians showed us around like we were tourists, never thinking we might be planning something." Jake studied the crude map. "What about the other species?" "The ones at dinner looked terrified." "Exactly," Lisa said. 12 species enslaved over the past century. Some of them have been here for decades. They know this station better than the Zephyrians do." A new sound reached them through the ventilation system. Voices speaking in hushed tones, but not in Zephyrian language. Other species were awake and talking, probably planning something of their own. "We need allies," Sam said. "Fighting our way out alone is suicide. But if we can coordinate with the other prisoners who have been broken by years of slavery," Alex pointed out. "They might be too scared to help." "Or too angry to stay quiet much longer," Jake replied. "Lisa, what do you know about the other species here?" Lisa consulted her notes. "The reptilian species we saw at dinner are called Skith. They were miners before being enslaved. Strong diggers, good with tools. The blue-skinned humanoids are Viridians, former engineers and technicians. Several others are from agricultural worlds. So we have miners, engineers, and farmers," Sam said. "People who know how to work with their hands and solve problems. People whose hands are more capable than the Zephyrians think," Jake added, understanding dawning on him. "Just like ours." They spent the next hour planning. The station's life support systems ran through maintenance tunnels too small for Zephyrians. The power grid had manual override controls in multiple locations. Most importantly, the communication array had a secondary control room that was rarely guarded. "If we can get a message to Earth," Alex said, "the fleet might be able to help." "The fleet is weeks away," Sam pointed out. "We need to survive long enough for help to arrive. Then we make our own help," Jake decided. "Tomorrow, during the final negotiation session, we start making contact with the other species. We find out who wants to fight and who can help." The next morning brought a harsh wake-up call from the station's communication system. "All guests will report to Conference Room Alpha for final agreement signing," Kethver announced. "Refusal to attend will be considered an act of aggression." The humans dressed quickly and made their way to the conference room. The space was filled with representatives from all the enslaved species, each group sitting at their own table. Zephyrian guards stood at every exit, no longer trying to hide their true purpose. Kethver stood at the head of the room, flanked by other high-ranking aliens. In his hands was a metal tablet covered in alien writing. "The Human Protectorate Agreement is ready for final signature. Your species will be relocated to designated work facilities throughout the Empire. Work facilities, Lisa repeated. You mean slave camps? Such harsh words, Kethver replied with mock concern. You will be housed, fed, and protected. In return, you will contribute to the Empire's prosperity. It is a fair arrangement. Jake stood slowly, knowing this was the moment of truth. And if we refuse? Kethver's expression turned cold. Refusal is not an option. Your homeworld's location is known to us. Earth's defenses are primitive compared to our fleet. You can serve willingly or watch your planet burn. The threat hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. Jake looked around the room at the other species. Fear was written on every face. But he also saw something else. Anger, desperation, the look of beings who had nothing left to lose. I need to consult with my team, Jake said. You have 5 minutes, Kethver replied. Then you sign, or we begin pacification of your homeworld. Jake huddled with his team, but his real attention was on the other tables. A Skith representative was tapping claws against the table in a pattern. A Viridian was moving her hands in. What looked like nervous gestures but might be sign language. Lisa had been studying alien cultures for months. She began responding to the signals, using her hands to form simple gestures. The universal sign for question. The gesture for help. The symbol for unity. Slowly, carefully, a network of communication began to form across the room. The Skith knew the maintenance tunnels. The Viridians understood the power systems. A tall, thin species called Nexari had been forced to work on the communication arrays. Time is up, Kethver announced. Sign the agreement. Jake walked to the metal tablet, the signing stylus heavy in his soft human hand. The Zephyrians watched with satisfaction, believing they had won another easy victory over a weak species. You said something interesting when we first met, Jake said, looking up at the towering alien. You said our hands were not made for holding weapons, that they were too soft, too weak. I speak only truth, Kethver replied. Soft hands for soft beings. Jake gripped the stylus tighter. Around the room he could see the other species tensing. The network of communication had worked. Everyone knew what was coming next. You are right about one thing, Jake said. These hands were not made for holding weapons. He looked down at the metal tablet, then back up at Kethver. But you are wrong about what they are made for. In one fluid motion, Jake drove the metal stylus into the tablet's surface, shattering the alien device. Sparks flew as the electronics inside died, taking the agreement with them. These hands, Jake said as alarms began blaring throughout the station, were made for breaking chains. The room erupted into chaos. Skith miners overturned tables and charged the guards. Viridian engineers pulled hidden tools from their clothing. Nexari technicians sprinted for the exits. Heading for systems they knew better than their captors, Sam Rodriguez had been ready for this moment. He grabbed a metal chair and swung it. At the nearest Zephyrian guard, the impact sending the alien stumbling backward. Alex dove for a fallen weapon while Lisa ran for the communication panel. Stop them! Kethver roared, but his guards were overwhelmed by the sudden rebellion. Dozens of enslaved beings who had seemed broken and defeated were fighting with desperate fury. Jake found himself face to face with Kethver, the massive alien looming over him with murder in his red eyes. You will pay for this insolence, soft one. Maybe, Jake replied, backing toward the exit where Sam was holding the doorway. But not today. The 4 humans ran through corridors that were now filled with the sounds of battle. Throughout Nexus Prime, the enslaved species were rising up. Alarms screamed warnings in a dozen languages. Emergency lights bathed everything in bloody red. The communication array is 3 levels up, Lisa shouted over the noise. If we can get there, we can call for help, Alex finished. Earth needs to know what is happening here. They reached a maintenance shaft that Alex had marked on his map. One by one, they climbed into the narrow tunnel, leaving behind the sounds of rebellion and revolution. Above them, the real battle was just beginning. The maintenance shaft was barely wide enough for human shoulders. Jake Morrison crawled through the narrow tunnel, following Alex's hand-drawn map toward the communication array. Behind him, Lisa Carter struggled with her tablet while Sam Rodriguez covered their rear. The sounds of battle echoed through the station's walls, growing louder as the rebellion spread. "2 more turns and we should reach the access panel," Alex whispered from ahead. His voice was tight with concentration as he navigated the cramped space. Jake could hear Zephyrian voices shouting orders in the corridors below. The aliens were trying to coordinate their response, but they had never planned for a coordinated uprising. Their arrogance had become their weakness. "Contact on 6, Sam called out softly. Through the ventilation grates, they could see Zephyrian guards running past with weapons drawn. The aliens looked confused and angry, not understanding how their prisoners had organized so quickly. Alex reached the access panel and began working on the electronic lock. His engineering training served him well as he bypassed the alien security system. The panel opened with a soft click, revealing the communication room beyond. "Clear," Alex reported after checking the room, "but we need to move fast. They will figure out what we are doing soon enough." The 4 humans dropped into the communication center, a space filled with alien technology that hummed with energy. Multiple screens showed different parts of the station, and Jake could see the extent of the uprising. Everywhere the enslaved species were fighting back against their captors, Lisa immediately went to work on the communication array. Her scientific training had prepared her for alien technology, but this was still guesswork. "I need time to figure out their transmission protocols," she said, her fingers flying over the controls. That Sam positioned himself at the door with a Zephyrian weapon he had taken from a fallen guard. The weapon was awkward in his human hands, designed for 4 armed aliens, but he was making it work. "Company coming," he warned as footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. "How much time do you need?" Jake asked Lisa. 5 minutes, maybe 10 if their encryption is complex." "You've got 2, Sam said as the footsteps grew louder. "Maybe 3 if we are lucky." Alex was studying the station's defensive systems on the main screen. "Jake, look at this. They have got automated defenses throughout the station. Gun turrets, force fields, lockdown procedures, but they are all controlled from here." "Can you access them?" "Working on it," Alex replied, his hands moving over unfamiliar controls. "Their security assumes the person in this room is authorized. They never thought someone would break in." The door exploded inward as Zephyrian guards blasted through. Sam opened fire immediately, his precise shooting forcing the aliens to take cover. Human marksmanship training proved superior to alien brute force as his shots found their targets despite the awkward weapon. "Got it," Lisa shouted over the noise of battle. "Transmitting to Earth now. Full details of the situation and our location." 1 of the Zephyrian guards made it through Sam's defensive fire, charging toward the communication console with claws extended. Jake intercepted the alien, grabbing a metal tool from the workstation and swinging it with all his strength. The impact sent the Zephyrian stumbling, surprised by human determination. Jake pressed his attack, using his smaller size and agility to stay inside the alien's reach. Where the Zephyrian expected to use brute force, Jake used speed and precision. "Defensive systems are online," Alex announced, turning them against the Zephyrians now. Throughout the station, automated gun turrets that had been designed to protect Zephyrian interests turned on their creators. The enslaved species had been mapped as non-threats in the system, but the Zephyrians were suddenly being targeted by their own defenses. More aliens tried to storm the communication room, but Sam had found his rhythm with the unfamiliar weapon. His marine training adapted to the alien design, using the weapon's multiple firing points to create overlapping fields of fire. The Zephyrians could not advance through the precise barrage. "Sam," Jake called out. "Behind you." A Zephyrian had broken through the ventilation shaft, dropping into the room with claws extended. Sam spun around, but the alien was too close for weapons. The 2 beings grappled, 4 alien arms against 2 human ones. The Zephyrian was stronger, but Sam had trained for close combat his entire adult life. He used the alien size against it, applying leverage and technique where raw strength would have failed. His human hands, supposedly too weak for combat, found pressure points and joint locks that the alien anatomy could not resist. "Lisa, how is that transmission coming?" Jake asked while helping Sam subdue the Zephyrian. Earth is responding, she replied, excitement in her voice. They are sending the fleet immediately. But it will take weeks to get here. And then we hold the station. Until they arrive, Alex said. He had taken control of more systems, turning the station's own defenses against its masters. The other species are winning in most sectors. The Zephyrians are falling back to fortified positions. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the battle throughout Nexus Prime. The uprising was succeeding beyond their wildest hopes. Species that had been enslaved for decades were fighting with desperate courage, and their knowledge of the station was proving decisive. There, Sam said, finishing with the unconscious Zephyrian. That is how you handle something too big for its own good. Suddenly, the lights in the communication room turned red. A new alarm began sounding, different from the battle alerts they had been hearing. What is that? Lisa asked. Alex checked the station status displays, his face growing pale. Self-destruct sequence. Kethfer would rather destroy the station than let us escape. Can you stop it? Maybe, but I need to get to the main computer core. And it is in the most heavily defended part of the station. Jake looked at his team. Then at the tactical display showing their allies throughout Nexus Prime, hundreds of beings who had suffered under Zephyrian rule, who had found hope in human determination to fight back. Then we go together, Jake decided, all of us. The freed species can hold the critical systems while we stop the self-destruct. That is suicide, Sam pointed out. The computer core is surrounded by Zephyrian strongholds. Maybe, Jake replied. But what is the alternative? Let them destroy the station and everyone on it? Lisa had been monitoring communications from the other species. The Skith miners say they can get us close through the lower tunnels. The Viridians can shut down power to the defensive systems. The Nexari know the computer core layout. It could work, Alex admitted, if we coordinate perfectly and get very lucky. Then we do it, Jake said. We finish what we started. They left the communication room and made their way toward the rendezvous point with their allies. The corridors were battle-scarred, with evidence of fierce fighting between the enslaved species and their former masters. But the freed prisoners were winning, driven by years of suppressed anger and newfound hope. At the meeting point, representatives from a dozen species waited. The Skith leader, a scarred reptilian being, spoke in broken universal language. Humans. Fight good? We follow humans to freedom. A Viridian engineer added, Your hands may be soft, but your hearts are strong. We will help you save the station. Jake looked around at the assembled beings, all of them smaller and supposedly weaker than the Zephyrians, all of them ready to risk everything for freedom. Let us go stop this self-destruct, Jake said, and show these aliens what happens when they underestimate the power of working together. The final assault on the computer core began with species. That had been dismissed as weak and helpless, proving that strength came from courage, not size. The Zephyrians had learned to fear weapons that could be held properly, precision that came from practice, and determination that could not be broken. By slavery, human hands led the way, not because they were made for holding weapons, but because they were made for holding hope. The computer core lay deep in the heart of Nexus Prime, protected by layers of Zephyrian defenses. Jake Morrison crouched in the maintenance tunnel with his human team and dozens of freed aliens, all listening to the countdown that echoed through the station's communication system. 23 minutes until self-destruct. The Skith have cleared the lower tunnels, reported the reptilian miner leader. His claws were stained with Zephyrian blood and his eyes burned with decades of suppressed rage. The path to the core is open but heavily guarded. Alex Turner studied his tablet, which now displayed station schematics provided by their alien allies. The Viridians have shut down power to 3 defensive grids, but the core itself still has independent power. How many guards? Sam Rodriguez asked, checking his captured Zephyrian weapon. Too many for a direct assault, replied a Nexari technician. The tall, thin alien had worked on the core systems for 15 years as a slave, but there is another way. The core has manual override controls for emergencies. If someone can reach the central console, Someone small enough to fit through the access shaft, Lisa Carter finished, understanding immediately. Someone with precise hand control to work the manual. Systems. Jake looked around at their assembled force. The freed species had fought bravely, but they were not soldiers. Most were miners, engineers, farmers, and technicians. People who worked with their hands, just like humans. We split into 3 groups, Jake decided. Sam leads the frontal assault, to draw their attention. Alex takes the technical team to shut down the remaining power grids. Lisa and I go for the core override. That leaves you facing Kethver alone, Sam pointed out. He will be at the core, protecting the self-destruct personally. Then we deal with him when we get there, Jake replied. Right now, stopping that countdown is all that matters. The 3 groups separated, each taking different routes toward the computer core. Jake and Lisa crawled through access shafts that were barely wide enough for human bodies, following maps provided by aliens who had maintained these systems as slaves. Behind them, the sounds of battle grew louder as Sam's assault team engaged the Zephyrian defenders. Weapons fire echoed through the corridors, punctuated by alien roars and the crash of falling debris. Power grid 2 is down, Alex reported. Through their communication devices. But they are rerouting through backup systems. Keep at it, Jake replied, squeezing through a particularly narrow section of the access tunnel. We are almost at the core. Lisa followed close behind, her scientific equipment replaced with tools taken from alien workstations. She had adapted quickly to the situation, her soft hands proving capable of much more than academic research. They reached the final access panel and peered through the grating into the computer core chamber. The room was vast, filled with alien technology that hummed with dangerous energy. At the center stood the main control console, and beside it, Ambassador Kethver, the massive Zephyrian, was alone except for 2 guards, his attention focused on the countdown display. 18 minutes remained. His 4 arms moved over the controls, entering codes that would ensure the station's destruction. He is trying to lock out the override systems, Lisa whispered. If he succeeds, nothing we do. We'll stop the self-destruct. Jake studied the room layout. The access shaft opened directly above the control console, but Kethver would see them coming. The guards were positioned to cover the main entrances, not expecting an attack from above. When I drop down, you go for the console, Jake told Lisa. I will handle Kethver. Jake, he's 3 times your size and has natural armor. You cannot fight him hand to hand. Maybe not, Jake agreed. But I can distract him long enough for you to work. They removed the access panel quietly and prepared to drop into the core chamber. Below them, Kethver continued his work, confident that no one could stop the station's destruction. Jake dropped first, landing on the control console with a crash that echoed through the chamber. Kethver spun around, his red eyes wide with surprise and rage. The soft human, the alien snarled. You should have accepted your place as a slave. Now you will die with the rest of this station. Probably, Jake admitted, picking up a metal tool from the console, but not quietly. Lisa dropped from the shaft and rolled toward the override controls while Jake faced down the massive alien. Kethver was everything the Zephyrians claimed to be, strong, armored, and armed with natural weapons. But Jake had learned something important during their time on the station. Size was not everything. Jake dodged the alien's first attack, using his smaller size to stay inside Kethver's reach. The Zephyrian's claws whistled through the air where Jake had been standing, but human reflexes and agility kept him moving. Stand still and die properly, Kethver roared, swinging all 4 arms. At once, Jake ducked under the attack and struck back with the metal tool, aiming for the joints in the alien's armor. His human hands, supposedly too weak for weapons, guided the improvised club with surgical precision. The impact sent shock waves through Kethver's arm, and the alien stumbled. He had expected brute force, not calculated strikes aimed at anatomical weak points. Your hands, Kethver said with growing confusion. They should not be able to hold weapons properly. Jake finished, striking again at a different joint. You were right about one thing. These hands were not made for holding weapons. He pressed his attack, using speed and precision against strength and armor. Each strike was carefully aimed, each movement calculated for maximum effect. Human martial arts and anatomy training against alien assumptions about warfare. They were made for solving problems, Jake continued, landing another precise blow. For fixing things. For building things. Another strike. For taking things apart when they are broken. Kethver backed away, ichor flowing from damaged joints in his armor. The self-proclaimed superior being was being systematically dismantled by someone he considered inferior. "Lisa, how are those overrides coming?" Jake called out while maintaining his attack pattern. "Almost there," she replied from the control console. Her hands moved quickly over the alien interfaces, her scientific training helping her understand the unfamiliar technology. "The lockout is almost complete. I need more time." The two remaining guards tried to help their leader, but Sam's assault team had reached the chamber. Weapon fire filled the air as human precision met alien strength. The guards fell to coordinated attacks from species they had considered harmless. "Power grids are down," Alex reported through their communications. "Core is running on emergency power only." Jake could see the strain in Kethver's movements now. The alien was strong, but his attacks were becoming clumsy and desperate. Fear was replacing confidence as the supposedly weak human proved more dangerous than any weapon. "This is impossible," Kethver gasped, backing against the chamber wall. "Soft species do not fight like this. They surrender. They accept their place." "Maybe they did before," Jake replied, breathing hard but still advancing. "But you made one mistake. You underestimated what we could do when we worked together." "Got it," Lisa shouted from the console. "Self-destruct is cancelled, and I am sending the override codes to every enslaved world in the Zephyrian Empire. Throughout the galaxy, the signal spread from world to world. Hundreds of enslaved species received the same message the humans had delivered to Nexus Prime. The weak could fight back. The soft could be strong. The supposedly inferior could defeat their masters." Kethver collapsed against the wall, his armor cracked and his spirit broken. "Your species will regret this. The Empire will return with greater force." "Let them come," Jake said, helping Lisa to her feet. Her hands were cut and bruised from working on the alien console, but they had saved. The station and perhaps the galaxy. Sam and Alex entered the chamber with their alien allies, all of them battered, but victorious. The self-destruct was stopped, the station was secure, and the Zephyrian Empire was facing rebellions on dozens of worlds. "The Earth fleet will be here in 2 weeks," Lisa reported, reading the latest communications. "But I do not think we will. Need rescuing anymore?" Jake looked around at the freed aliens, at his human teammates, at the control room they had captured with determination and cooperation. The Zephyrians had been wrong about many things, but especially about human hands. Doctor. Lisa Carter held up her scarred and bloodied hands, examining them in the light of the alien technology they had conquered. These soft appendages had built starships, performed delicate surgery, created art, and written poetry. Today they had also torn down an empire built on oppression. "You were right about one thing," Jake said to the defeated Kethver. "Our hands are not made for holding weapons. They are made for holding hope. And hope, properly held, is the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy." Outside the chamber, throughout Nexus Prime, the freed species began the work of building something new. A coalition of worlds that valued cooperation over conquest, intelligence over strength, and the precise work of many hands over the crude power of the few. The age of the Zephyrian Empire was ending, brought down not by superior weapons but by the simple truth that no one could remain enslaved if they refused to accept their chains.